Good morning. I'm Bill Southern from Nugget Shooter Journals, sitting here today doing some research because I'm in somewhat of a panic mode with myself because I've only found 2 nuggets in the new year so far, and both of them are pretty darn small. And I'm actually spending a lot of time doing research these days to try to get into some new locations and find some new spots where maybe I can get some more gold. Because I'll tell you something, gold doesn't grow back once you get a spot cleaned out pretty good. You pretty much gotta go and crawl around for just crumbs after that. So you got to stay on top of things and be looking for new spots all the time. And I really like Google Earth, and you can go to another site called EarthPoint Topo Map and download their program and actually lay topo maps right over the top of Google Earth. And this really gives you a good look at some stuff and can put you in some pretty good areas. And I like to look for mine tailings in known mining districts. And as a matter of fact, geez, I think it's been now over 10 years ago. I was doing just that very thing. I was looking for mine tailings in the up above Wickenburg, Arizona, up in that way. And I found a spot up there on the map that looked pretty good. And there was some tailings on the side of a hill. There were no roads or trails to it, at least not visible ones. And even with Google Earth, you can zoom in pretty close and see. And there hadn't been anybody there in a vehicle in quite a while. And I can even see quad trails. And some of the maps, for instance, are pretty recent. This one I'm looking at right now, I think, is from 1997 or so. So if there would have been a trail there by the old timers or something, I would have seen it. But I saw these shafts and these piles of tailings. So I made a journey out there, and I had to walk about 2 miles to get into this spot. And it was a pretty neat spot. And there was still, back then, there was still buildings there. There was, you went into what used to be the lab, and there was actually core samples and stuff like that still inside the building. And I hadn't noticed the building when I was looking at the tailings piles. It was down below on the back side of the hill. So you had to come over the hill to where they were mining. But the angle I was looking at, I guess I just didn't notice that there were some small buildings there. And there was still equipment in there. There was still plates, and there was still coffee cups on the table sitting in this place. Bottles of chemicals. Who knows what they were, because the labels or whatever was written on them was long gone. So anyway, I could tell pretty much it was a gold mine, because there's either parts of it, there was parts of an old shaker table and stuff there. And I went out and looked around on the mine dump a little bit and did some metal detection. I think I was using a gold bug 2 back then, and got a few small pieces off the piles right there by the over the hill. And so I hit the wash down below, and I got some pretty nice little pieces out of that wash. And as I was working up that wash real slow, I got just a screaming, booming signal out of this darn wash. And man, I thought I was onto something there, let me tell you. And I dug it up, and it was an old Colt revolver. And it was a mess. I mean, it couldn't have been used or restored or anything. But it sure was a cool find. And it got me to thinking, well, how in the world did this old fella lose his revolver in the wash? And found some old spurs back in there. And I started putting around the shafts a little bit. And generally, I don't like to go into mine shafts. But this one had caved in. And you could see where the shaft had come in from below. And it had caved in. It was like they had taken out enough material from the inside that the whole thing just kind of whoomp and caved in. I don't know if that happened when they were working the mine or afterwards. And so I got down into where that had caved in, and I was hunting down in there, and I started pulling little bitty pickers off the wall in there. And that was really cool. So I'm scanning along the walls real slow, and I get a signal in this nasty red decomposed material. A lot of it was hematite, I believe. And there's some really nice clusters of vanadinite crystals we found in there, and some regular crystals as well, just quartz crystals. But anyway, we're checking these walls. And I say we, it was me and a friend. And looking on the walls of this thing and pulling off those little pieces. Well, I got around to the back side of that wall, and that's where the tunnel then continued down right there, and you could, actually go down into the tunnel. And I crawled into the mouth of that tunnel just a little bit, and I get real nervous when I get in a hole like that. I just I've heard too many stories, and I definitely won't go down into a shaft. Tunnels, they're a little safer, I think, and not quite as scary to me anyway. And I tapped on the walls; they seemed fairly, stable. So I'm going in this tunnel and I'm checking the walls. I got a nice piece, man. I popped out a piece. Oh, geez, about the size of a ram wearing on my finger. And when I got the signal, it was just poking out of the wall. You could see it. It's just covered with this nasty red hematite. And the nugget was not like a nice, pretty nugget that you'd normally see. It was just laced with that red stuff, and it's kind of what you'd call ugly gold, I guess. And I got pretty excited about that, so I ran out of the hole and called my buddy up there and said, "Look what I just got out of the wall down in that tunnel." He said, "That's pretty nice." He goes, "But I'm not going in no tunnel." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go back in there a little ways and see what I can find." And it was pretty cool. I found an old carbide lamp in there and some other stuff while I was down in there. But I started working that wall again, and I'd gone in not all that far, probably 50 feet, far enough that the opening looked pretty small way over there, and I was using old headlamp style headlight and chipping away when I got a target. And I had quite a few little pieces by then. And then I got a big target, and I got pretty excited because this is right in the wall of this thing. And I started picking away and chipping it out of there. And my friends, it turned out to be a pocket of gold. And it was in a reddish, clayish mass. And it wasn't solid. You could take pieces of it, crumble it up with your hand and drop it. And then the nuggets would be mixed in with the red material. And that was really cool. There turned out, after I chipped that area out, it was an area about, I don't know, probably about big around as a basketball. I went back in about this deep. And I got almost 8 ounces of gold out of that thing. And there was really no way to sell it as nuggets and stuff because it was just so, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just the ore itself was that red stuff, and the gold was just mixed in with it. So basically what I did was crushed it all up and then panned out the gold, panned the red material out and kept the gold. The cool part was as you panned that out, it looked like there was fine gold all in the bottom of the pan. So I'm thinking, man, along with all this fine gold in these walls, we need to go back and dry wash this thing. And I thought about it, went up there several times, got quite a bit of gold out of this area. And then it just, I kind of petered out. There was a little bit of gold in the wash down below. And we got some more gold out of the walls. So we started thinking about maybe dry washing some of those piles. Heck, there could be some pretty nice stuff in those piles, right? So we hauled the dry washer up there. And that's a long hike. It was a Keen puffer. And I had this thing on my back, folded up like a backpack, like they show you can do in the old ads. And I'll tell you what, I was a lot younger then, and boy, that was one heavy hike up into there. And got that thing up there, and my partner carried the battery. It was just a little motorcycle battery, so it wasn't too bad, and the lunch and all that stuff. And we set up and started dry washing on those piles a little bit. And after the first run, we dumped everything into the gold pan, and we started panning this out. And I was sitting over there eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Chucky says, "Hey, you need to come see this." So I walked over there. The whole bottom of that gold pan was nothing but yellow. But it was a funny looking yellow. And couldn't figure out what the heck we were looking at. And we started picking it out, and I got out a loop. And I'm looking at this stuff through a loop. And they're all little tiny, perfectly shaped crystals of vanadinite. And I believe that's what it was. I could be wrong, but it was yellow, and it looked, I mean, in the pan it looked like gold, but as soon as you looked at it real close, you realize that's not gold. It's that crystalline material. And it's the same stuff that we were finding when we were breaking up those globs of ore that had the gold in it. Had that same type of stuff in it, but not as much. The tailings piles are just full of this stuff. And we had a lot of fun up there for probably a year or two, going back and forth and finding gold. But I've been back there now probably 20 times since, and I've only found 2 more pieces of gold. So the gold was really in one local area, and that was it. And of course, that made us look all over that area around there. And back at home, doing more research like I am today on Google Earth, I found some more areas that looked promising in there. We found some more gold in that area. And we started following the trends, okay? And when you zoom in on Google Earth, you can see contact zones. You can see where, say, red and gray or red and green meet. And most of the gold areas in Arizona and the western United States, most of them, I say, are listed. So you can look these areas up. You can get online and bring them up on Google Earth. You can look at the buildings. You can look at everything there in the old mining districts. And then you can download Minecache or another similar program and actually see where placer claims were, where lode claims were, where they still are, where some have been abandoned. And believe it or not, I've gone to some abandoned mining claims I found on Minecache and found some pretty nice gold. And one thing you got to remember about the old timers is they didn't have the luxury of coming home and saying hi to the wife and sitting in a big nice comfy chair and popping the TV on or the computer and waiting for dinner. If they didn't get out there and get something, they didn't eat. So if they got in a wash or an area where they would get a nugget or two here and there, they'd just walk away from those spots. I mean, it's just too much effort, too much work for a little bit of gold, not even enough to feed you. I mean, geez, gold was only 20 bucks an ounce back then or so. And so a lot of these areas where you find old mines with the old tailings and stuff, there'll be stringer veins and more gold in the area. And sometimes it'll be one little wash out of a dozen washes you walk into, and you'll walk into one and pull out 3-4 ounces of gold. My best ever wash was 10.5 ounces out of one wash, one little wash. I told that story, I believe. And that was just over a period of a few days. I mean, some washes have produced me a lot more gold than that, but it's been over time, going back and hunting again, waiting for it to rain real hard, move some dirt around and going back and doing it again. But anyway, back to today's subject. I'm researching today. I've got my butt kicked the last couple times out, including yesterday. And I think I'm probably going to go out a little later today to the same new area I'm looking at. And it's not that far from the house. So, but boy, I found evidence that they'd been in there. And some friends of mine told me to look around this area a little bit, a real close friend. And I guess he's gotten some nuggets out of there in the past. And I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but so I'm in there kind of snooping around on a percentage type deal. So if I go in there and find a big handful of gold, I'm going to go back and share a little bit of that gold with my buddy. It's just the right thing to do if somebody puts you on a good spot. And a lot of times you can go get a hold of claim owners that you find on Minecache and other places. And you can call them up and say, hey, you know what? My name's such and such, and I hunt gold with a metal detector. And I'd like to hunt your claim. And the reactions vary you get from these guys. Some of them will go, hey, well, let's talk about this. The others just hang up on you. But the ones that will talk to you, oftentimes, you got to figure it this way. You're doing work for them, number one, because when you find gold, most of them request that they'd like to know where you found that gold. And number two, you're giving them part of that gold. I offer whatever they want. I say, look, you let me hunt your claim, I'll give you whatever percentage you want as long as it's not below 50%. And most of them will say, give me 20%. Some will say, give me 10%. Some will say, well, I'll take the best looking nuggets out of there if you get any. And others just don't care. And I I've got some friends that dredge or just dry wash or just do hard rock stuff that'll let me hunt their claims anytime I want. I show them what I find, and I tell them where I found it. And where you found that can be very important to somebody that uses other methods of recovery to go in there and see if they can't get some good gold right there where you found your nuggets. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling on here, and I got to do a little more research and figure out exactly what I'm going to do today. I think I'm going to go back in the same area I was yesterday. I kind of cut that video off because just wasn't anything to film. So I'm going to do a little more research this morning, and I got to go and check in at work for just a little bit. And I'm going to get back out there in the desert and find some gold, my friends. And if I don't, at least I tried. And if you don't stick with it, you don't keep trying, you're not going to find that gold. And even us guys, the so-called bros, we get the crap skunked out of us quite often. And I'm in one of those stretches right now, and I'm not liking it. So for right now, it's Nugget Shooter out, and I'm back to the books.